function of the political landscape. You know, as a part of the political process, there's a lot of propping up that goes on. What happens when that propping up falls away? What happens when, God forbid, the economy course corrects, the stock market course corrects? Who here has seen the proliferation of for sale signs in their neighborhood in the last few months? Everyone's like, let's get out of here while we still can. This is the reality of the world we're now living in. And so while I'm not an economist and I'm not an analyst, like many of you in this room, I try and keep my aperture as open as possible to see what are the forces that are going to inform not only my company and its mission in the world, but really the realization of purpose at large, so that sustainability, purpose becomes a way of being in the world rather than an add-on when times are good. And so let's look at three things: the market and economic corrections, the consumer mindset, and what does that mean for brands? And this is where it just really starts to get quite depressing. It's kind of like the business case for self-medication. So if we look, you know, whether we take the view of Blackstone saying US recession coming in 2017, or whether we look at The Guardian talking about global recession coming, being most likely, principally because of a slowdown in China, whether you look at Bloomberg reporting a incremental decrease in retail sales and auto sales, when you look at the Wall Street Journal talking about the increased likelihood of a recession. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to put your hands together for the most depressing graphic you're going to see in the next 4 days at Sustainable Brands. This is JP Morgan's prediction as to whether we have a US recession coming or not. So that spirit, that joy, that elevation you felt at the beginning, I hope that it's slowly pouring out of your body. But this is the reality of the world that we face. And to ignore it is to court disaster on so many levels, but perhaps most importantly, it's to let go of our mandate, which is to drive change, because the people in this room, every single one of you, are nodes in a network of change. And we need you when things are good, but we need you even more when things are bad. And this is why. This is what's going to happen. The consumer mindset, there's going to be a decrease in disposable income, brand loyalty, an increase in brand scrutiny and reliance on word-of-mouth marketing, and a rise in consumer activism, which is so palpable and visceral on a daily basis, whether you're on Facebook or Snapchat. And then in terms of brand vulnerabilities, the implications are huge. You've got a decrease in sales and profits. Your employees get depressed. They get fearful for their jobs. You've got to leverage your reputation more. You've got to make your marketing dollars go further. And you've got more and more pressure from competition and to really keep and even gain more mind share out there in the marketplace. Every single one of us knows this from 2007 and 2008, right? Do you kind of throw up a little bit in your mouth when you remember that time? A visceral physical response? You're like, oh my God, are we really going back there? We are overdue, historically, for some sort of course correction like that. So to ignore it is to court disaster, and we have a political environment which is really, if we don't pay attention to it, we can be distracted and not realize that it's coming. And all of this is in the context of, Harvest Media's Meaningful Brands report, when they said that most people around the world would not care if 74% of brands disappeared. There's no such thing as brand loyalty anymore. I have a 16 and a 13-year-old daughter. They didn't even know what a brand is. All they know is a piece of content in front of them which just disappears, ephemeral, within the next 24 hours. There's no such thing as loyalty as we understood it when we were growing up. And so it's very easy to think that when times get tough, you've got to double down and lean into your product. You've got to take a transactional mentality. You've got to shore up the bottom line. But every single one of us in this room needs to be able to make the business case for doing something which might appear counterintuitive, which is to lean into purpose and to leverage it to shore up your company and its mission in times of challenges. And the opportunity today is just to share with you a few ideas, actionable ideas how to do that. And Sustainable Brands will be sharing this content and you'll be able to take it back with you. So it's not about capturing this, but rather transposing how it might apply to your business. And there's 5 areas: employees, customers, consumers, marketing, and culture. So let's look at employees in terms of rationalizing it down to 3 key action steps that will make a difference within your organization and by extension, its impact in the world. You have to define your purpose in simple and emotional terms. We did a comprehensive, diligent, multi-week survey before we came here, and we came to astonishing results, which is 100% of you are qualified to be human. Every single one of you is still, our employees are still human beings sitting around a campfire telling stories, and they want to be related to from a heart level. Secondly, you have to share that purpose through your organization. through your all-staff meetings, your town halls, might be on SharePoint, it might be your employee blog. Let your employees know what you stand for. And also, can we stop thinking about them as employees? They are human beings who show up every day and put sweat equity into building your vision. And I just think employees just doesn't really capture that sentiment. And then thirdly, we have to give them ways to participate. We have to be able to articulate to them, here is a choice, a menu, a toolbox, so that they can show up, so that they can express themselves through the very way that they show up. If you look at all the studies, psychographics and otherwise, not everybody wants to do the same thing. And no one wants to be told what to do. So instead, you give people the opportunity to write a blog post, to volunteer, to donation match, whatever it might be. But even in that little act which recognizes that you see them as a human being, they're much more likely to show up and express themselves in ways that are unique to themselves, and therefore they'll be much more engaged with your purpose. And the great news is that we have data to back this up now. Imperative study from 2015 shows that purpose-oriented workers stay in organizations longer, and they're 50% more likely to take leadership positions. This is the business case you need to make with leadership when everything inside your company culture is working against you. In fact, those same purpose-driven employees, 47% higher promoters of the brand, higher levels of meaning, their experience of meaning through their work, higher leadership potential, and higher retention. These are all bottom line additions to your business. And if you want a great example, look at Timberland's Path of Service initiative, which has been around since 1992. They get full-time 40 hours to contribute to causes. In 2014, 72,000 participants, 78% of the company had done it at some point. A palpable example of bringing your purpose to life through your employees and institutionalizing it, making it a tradition that your employees look forward to. And if they break down how they do it, they break it down into 5 steps. Create opportunities, leverage senior leaders, recognize and celebrate those who are participating, foster employee ownership of those initiatives, and then tell those stories. Too many brands forget to close the feedback loop. You get all your employees meaningfully and in a very human sense engaging with these initiatives, then you fail on a human level to capture that story and share it back with them so that they see that their sweat equity actually made a difference. Don't forget to close the story loop. Secondly, customers, B2B world. B2B is now B2C, B2B2C, B2G is B2C. I'm not sure if those acronyms help anymore, do they? Anyway, the point is this. You have to tell your customers what you stand for because it gives you the opportunity to have a values alignment to mitigate risk. Every consumer has been raised on intuitive technology and watched their Facebook feed for the last 10 years and Occupy Wall Street and Arab Spring, and they know nothing other than consumer activism, in which case they look behind the retailer to find out who made the product and how was it made. In which case, retailers need to work with suppliers and vendors and to be customers that can stand up and say there's a values alignment, not just in terms of our product, but who we work with. And then you need to give them a positive story to tell. It is so powerful to go into a retailer or potential customer and say to them, not only are we aligned in terms of what we care about, but we've articulated a human story that you can leverage to your benefit with consumers. And if we had to quantify that, again, through the lens of a business case, if you look at the UK 2016 Reputation Dividend Report, there's a very encouraging increase in the role that community and environmental responsibility has in terms of degree of impact, in terms of business driver between 2013 and 2016. In fact, when they had to quantify the impact of CSR work amongst S&P 500 companies, it actually came out to 10.7%. 10.7% of the aggregate value of those companies came from their CSR work. That gets the CEO's attention. That gets the CMO's attention. The business case is here. And if you want to look at a great example, you've got the global wool supplier, Woolmark, headquarters in Australia, and there they are out in the world, not only making their product responsibly, but at the same time they're educating manufacturers, designers, how to actually take it to market in responsible ways. And it's so wonderful to see B2C companies, restaurants, going back up their supply chain and educating farmers and fishermen how to harvest their product more responsibly. And it's equally exciting to see B2B companies or suppliers educating their customers. This is the dynamic through which we transform the entire supply chain.